Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Garcia. Councilor Vido.
Present.
Councilor Avellaneda. Councilor Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilor Lopez.
Present.
Councilor Brown. Here. Councilor Perlatonda. Councilor Tejada. Councilor Robinson. Here. Councilor Bishop.
Present.
Councilor Ray Cooperall. 9 members present. We have a quorum. First order, memorials and celebratory resolutions. First resolution introduced by Councilor Robinson and all members of the City Council. Whereas Richie Smith, after 45 years of service at E911, will be retiring, and whereas Richie grew up in Chelsea on Addison Street and started as a fire alarm operator while still attending Chelsea High. And whereas since January 21st, 1974, Richie Schmidt has served as fire alarm operator, auxiliary firefighter, chief fire alarm operator, 911 director, and lead dispatcher. Whereas Richie Schmidt now lives in Revere with his daughter Noelle, he is an expert in the history of Chelsea, and he is an avid collector of Chelsea memorabilia and Chelsea clocks. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the members of the Chelsea City Council, wish you, Richie Schmidt, a happy and healthy retirement, and we thank you for your professionalism at E911 during your 45 years of service.
Chair recognizes Councilor Robinson.
Unanimously under suspension.
Seeing no objections, so moved, Councilor. You have the floor.
I'd like to congratulate Richie. We kind of go back a long way, and as you can see, Richie served this community for 45 years, which is a landmark. And I just wanted to congratulate him and recognize him and put a straw upon him this resolution for his service to the city of Chelsea.
Thank you. Any other councilors wish to speak? Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Madam President. Richie, I want to congratulate you on your retirement. Thank you for your service, your dedication to the city of Chelsea, for the professionalism that you displayed over all those years. I'm sure it was honorable, great. If it wasn't, I'm sure you would have left a long time ago. You would have been fired. But I'm sure the reason why they kept you is because of your personality, your dedication, and your ability to do the right thing at 911 when those callers come in and they need not only someone that's professionally on the other line, that someone can get them the service that they need right away. So thank you, and congratulations on your retirement.
I just want to add my congratulations to Richard and family. I've known him also for many, many years, more than I want to remember. Richard's always a professional, always did a great job in the 911 dispatch, and I congratulate him, and I'm sure you will enjoy retirement. I can vouch for it highly. Thank you.
Councilor Robinson. Absolutely.
Present this to him, guys.
All right, we're back in session.
Yeah,
I don't never know how to use this. I just always want to hit it.
good.
Next, you want me to
All
just
set.
start reading? Okay. Let me just read it.
Yeah. The next resolution introduced by...
Next resolution introduced by Councilor Robinson and all members of the Chelsea City Council, recognizing April 22nd as Earth Day. Whereas Earth Day was first celebrated on April 22nd, 1970, whereas the late Senator Gaylord Nelson, the founder of Earth Day, called on the people of the United States to hold elected officials accountable for failing to adequately protect the health of people in the natural environment. Whereas after witnessing years of environmental neglect, millions of Americans of all ages, walks of life, and political affiliations gathered in cities across the nation on the first Earth Day to demand basic protection for our planet and to commit to leaving behind a healthier world for the next generation. Whereas Earth Day unites people who had been fighting against oil spills, polluting factories and power plants, raw sewage and toxic dumps, the loss of wildlife, and other environmental ills. Whereas Earth Day is an annual event created to promote environmental citizenship and action year-round. Whereas the first celebration of Earth Day was the largest environmental grassroots event ever held at the time and is widely credited with launching the modern environmental movement. Whereas the voices of inaugural Earth Day participants galvanized an unparalleled period of legislative and grassroots activity that changed the way we interact with the environment, leading to the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency and passage of legislation such as the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, and the Endangered Species Act. Whereas by 1990, Earth Day was celebrated globally with 200 million people in 141 countries participating in Earth Day events. Whereas new and continuing challenges, including climate change, polluted oceans and waterways, loss of forests, wetlands, and other wildlife habitats, reinforce the need for adequate protections for the air we breathe, the water we drink, the lands we inhabit, and the animals we live alongside. Whereas the American Public Health Association declared 2017 the year of climate change and health because changes to our climate are harming Americans' health and safety, including respiratory allergies and asthma. Whereas Earth Day reaffirms our national responsibility in the global effort to combat climate change and protect our planet. Whereas Earth Day reminds us of the need to expand environmental and climate literacy, not only to strengthen environmental and climate protections, but also to accelerate development of green technologies and creation of green jobs. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the members of the Chelsea City Council, wish to go on record so as to recognize April 22nd, 2019 as Earth Day in Chelsea, and would like to encourage our residents to participate in the community programs offered so as to make Chelsea a better place to live in. Councilor Robinson.
Adopted unanimously under suspension. I'll be brief. Actually, this Saturday, there will be a cleanup effort that'll take place in the city of Chelsea. And I'd like to invite all the neighbors and colleagues to come out and help clean up the city.
Where should they go?
Come in front of City Hall,
At what time?
8 o'clock in the morning.
In front of
8:30.
City Hall at 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. 8:30. Okay.
And if you show up on time, you might get coffee
Ooh, okay. And donuts?
and donuts.
Councilor Robinson's buying coffee and donuts. All right, next order of business.
Public speaking.
Public speaking. Anybody that wishes to speak? Public speaking. Going once? Going twice? Before we move on, I just want to acknowledge that school committee member Rosemary Carlisle is here representing the school committee.
We have approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of April 8th, 2019.
Can I have a motion, councilors? Thank you.
Communications from the city manager. First communication, quarterly hiring report. Dear councilors, pursuant to Administrative Code Section 112.02, I have enclosed the required statistical quarterly report on hiring for the 12-month period from April 1st, 2018 through March 31st, 2019. I'll be available to answer any questions.
Councilor Cooper moves to adopt, accept and file a communication under suspension.
The next communication from the city manager, free cash reports.
Do you want to, are you reading? Yeah. Well, I'll-
Read
want
the
me to read
first
it?
part and then the
Amount.
amounts.
Do you want me to read
Okay.
it?
No, I'll take it.
Okay, good.
Dear councilors, I am writing with my final group of proposed one-time expenditures from the available free cash certified by DOR in January. One request is to cover a large deficit. The other 7 items are specific projects or initiatives. This will be my last free cash request for specific projects. The only remaining free cash request this fiscal year will be to cover end-of-year deficits, of which there are likely to be a few, and the use of some free cash, anticipated to be no more than $1 million. To help balance the FY20 budget consistent with our use of free cash in the past. Of course, this assumes the council does not recommend the use of free cash for any unanticipated projects between now and the end of FY19. The total amount requested is $1,719,328. The specifics follows. Deficit in police retroactive, $545,000. Bunker Hill Scholarship Program for Chelsea High School students, $225,000. Senior Transportation Pilot Program, $50,000. O'Neill Playground, $410,328. Miscellaneous park repairs, $82,000. Census preparation, $100,000. Plastic bag ban marketing funds, $7,000, and transportation study of the Park Pearl Congress intersection, $300,000.
Chair recognizes Bob Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. President, I move it's a committee, this communication to the Committee on Conference, and if I may speak on it.
Go ahead, you have the chair.
I'm sure the councilors have read these requests, and I find some of them disturbing, and maybe some other councilors do too. I think we need to meet in full conference and discuss each one of these appropriations. I'm not going to address each one separately now, because I will be in the weeks to come at the first and second reading and at the Committee on Conference. So I move the entire communication to Committee on Conference. Under suspension, unless someone wants to roll.
Anybody else like say anything? No? All right. So moved.
Next communication. Surrounding community agreement with Encore Casino. Dear councilors, as you know, the city has a surrounding community agreement with the Encore Casino that provides for certain annual funding to the city, commencing 90 days after the casino opening, now scheduled for late June. A copy of that agreement is attached. This agreement with Chelsea has imposed upon the city following the arbitration proceedings. Because the city did not agree with the arbitration decision and never signed this agreement, nonetheless, by statute, the agreement is binding upon the city. As you will see, the agreement provides for the city to receive annual payments from Encore of $650,000. The payments are set aside for 4 categories: $75,000 for business development, $250,000 for public safety, $100,000 for arts, cultural activities, and $225,000 for roadway work. There are 2 requests that I have for the City Council with respect to this agreement. First, I am concerned that the agreement contains no funding for workforce development training, our workforce for casino jobs, and for the jobs in other industries that will need to be backfilled as existing employees leave for the casino. Has been a major focus for the city over the past year. Working with the Chelsea 500 Coalition, we have spent considerable capital to prepare the workforce for the Encore opening, but to continue these efforts require funding. My first request of the council is to redirect some proposed annual casino funding to workforce development. Specifically, I propose that we redirect $100,000 annually from the Road Work Fund and utilize it for the workforce development. We already have an existing source of annual funding for roadway work, our annual Chapter 90 allotment, but we have no existing funds for workforce development, so diverting $100,000 would satisfy an unmet need, while still leaving $125,000 in casino money to supplement our Chapter 90 funding. To accomplish this goal, I would need assent from Encore Casino. The agreement with Encore requires mutual approval for any amendments. I feel confident that Encore would consent to such an amendment, given its own strong interest in workforce development. However, I do not wish to proceed without council approval. But if the council is amenable, I have prepared to draft order that would direct me to proceed with negotiations with Encore on these terms. The second request is that I have pertains to the requirement in Article 7.2 of the agreement that the city manager establish a committee to disperse the annual $100,000 in funding for arts cultural activities. Specifically, the money is to be distributed to qualified organizations to support cultural events, street fairs, art shows, festivals, and related activities that promote the community's heritage, quality of life, recreational and cultural activities. It seems to me there are two options here. The first is to simply utilize an existing committee to make these funding decisions. Specifically, the Chelsea Cultural Council is an existing 7-member resident board that already decides on the annual disbursement of funds provided by the Commonwealth for cultural enhancement, although the amount of annual funding anticipated from the Encore Casino is significantly greater than what this cultural council normally handles. The second option is to create an entirely new committee dedicated solely to disperse these casino funds. If we choose that option, I would recommend a small committee of no more than 5 residents, with some members chosen by the city manager and some members selected by the city council. I think it would be appropriate to discuss both of these matters in a separate subcommittee and to come to a resolution shortly in advance of the casino opening.
Can I have a motion?
Communication.
Council President, I move to accept and file communication. Under suspension, seeing no objection, so moved.
I would like to have it sent to committee and conference. I believe the actual one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that your motion?
Well, there isn't an order attached to it, but yeah.
Is there an order attached?
Attached to this, and those orders will be the ones that go to subcommittee. And therefore, by its very nature, the other orders coming in front of us, they will be sent to subcommittee, and then we can discuss it.
It's being referred to the subcommittee on conference.
Right.
Okay.
I don't understand why the,
So typically,
thing
when the
just
city
can't go
manager provides something like this, there is an order attached to it, and it usually goes under the president's name, where we would put it in as a regular order. We didn't do it this time. I was anticipating, because we're just getting the communication today, that it would come before us at the subsequent city council meeting, where we could then send it to a subcommittee. So he was just sending the communication to a subcommittee on conference. But,
I would like the whole thing to go to conference.
yeah, well, there isn't a,
Before any
okay.
orders are introduced, because
This whole thing.
This
I
whole
don't
thing.
happen to agree with the distribution of funding. So
Yeah.
I would, I don't want.
Absolutely.
I don't think we
It's
should put
going to a
orders in
subcommittee on
those things.
conference either way, and we can have further discussion on it when it comes up.
Okay, next communication, soundproofing, go ahead.
Dear councilors, feel free to stop me if anybody wants to. I am writing in response to recent council order requesting that I attempt to negotiate with Massport for additional soundproofing in Chelsea. Please note that I have been attempting to negotiate a new long-term mitigation agreement with Massport that would include some additional money for environmental impacts from Logan Airport since I arrived as city manager in July of 2015. Thus far, I have had no success. The council should note that prior to 2015 and going back to the city's receivership in the early 90s, the city had successive multi-year mitigation agreements with Massport, typically with 5-year terms. The agreements provided annual payments to the city, eventually reaching $600,000 annually. Funds always utilized by the city as general support for its budget. The last of these multi-year agreements expired on June 30th, 2015. Since that time, Massport has been unwilling to execute a long-term agreement with the city, instead only agreeing to 1-year extensions, all of which have provided the annual payment to the city of $600,000. Consistent with past history, we have used these funds for general budget support. Each year, in attempting to negotiate a long-term agreement with Massport, I have raised the issue of additional soundproofing funds. Massport has been adamant that it will not earmark funds for soundproofing, arguing that the city may utilize the $600,000 annual payment for any purpose it desires, including soundproofing if it wishes. That has not been feasible, given that we have historically relied upon the $600,000 annual payment for general budget support. Massport's position on soundproofing has been buttressed by the fact that no areas of the city not previously approved for soundproofing currently meet the FAA threshold for soundproofing, at least according to the FAA sound modeling. The city has contemplated seeking an independent noise study to provide evidence to the contrary. However, thus far, engaging an expert to perform such an independent noise study has been challenging. First, many reputable firms with a specialty in airport-related noise have a conflict that prevents them from working in an adverse situation with Massport. Second, firms without such a conflict have cautioned that independent noise testing would not necessarily be helpful to the city because soundproofing is a reimbursement program from the FAA, and the FAA will not accept independent noise testing as an alternative to their own noise modeling for purposes of the soundproofing program. We are continuing to work with outside entities to see if there is a better approach for engaging Massport in this soundproofing discussion. And we continue to press Massport for a long-term mitigation package on terms favorable enough that they may warrant a decision by the City Council to forego any independent noise testing. Unfortunately, for the moment, I cannot report any progress on either front. Councilor Recupero. Seeing no objections, it's accepted and filed. You have the floor, Councilor.
City manager says, even in this paper, it says, no accepted independent noise testing. So it means the FAA, even if we do an independent study, he's saying they don't accept it. I don't believe that's true. We should do a study of our own, and we should continue to negotiate with Massport. And if there's no, they should continue, and we should have our own testing to find out if it's really as good as they say it is. And then over here it says we can use the $600,000 to be utilized if you wish to for soundproofing. So if we can at least try to help some people where the soundproofing is that bad when we do the study or whatever it is, maybe we can use our own money to help. If Massport is not willing, because the city manager seems to say that Massport is unwilling to cooperate with us, and no matter what we try to do, they don't want to do it. So there must be a way to make it better for the people to live, they live around the noise, to make it better for them. So I think that we should continue to do our own study and bring it forth, even though they say our study doesn't matter. It does matter. It matters to the people that live here.
Councilor Tejada?
So I think the thing with the study is that it's proven like really expensive, you know? And my understanding is that the sensor that that Massport uses is in the wrong place, right? It's in Admirals Hill, where there aren't too many planes flying over there. Recently, we see that there's an antenna being put up, I think, by Verizon over here at the top of the hill in Bellingham, on Bellingham Street. I don't know if it would be better, the effort would be better served trying to convince the FAA and Massport to relocate that antenna so they can do their own study and maybe come up with a better conclusion or a different conclusion. We don't necessarily want to put money into something that'll be thrown out, because the reality is, regardless of what anybody says, a pilot in the air is going to do what he has to do to land the plane safely, regardless of the noise. So I'm just thinking that maybe that effort of trying to relocate that would probably be more fruitful, just throwing something out there. So.
Thank you. Councilor Avellaneda?
As one of the councilors who had earlier proposed or requested a sound study to be done, I've obviously been following this for a long time, and I will tell you this. What the city manager has said about having difficulty in finding a company who is capable to do the sound study, and not only capable but willing to do the sound study, has been very difficult. We have found companies that do this sort of testing, but they refuse because they don't want to lose possible business in the future with Massport or any other airport and be blacklisted, so to speak. But here's the way it's all. I'm going to give you my version of what I think is going on. There are residents here in the city of Chelsea, like myself, who suffer from the amount of noise that is going on from the planes. We don't need Massport or FAA telling us otherwise. We know. It's just ridiculous at times. FAA is responsible for airports across this country. They will not provide soundproofing for this community for the levels that are here and the magnitude that needs to reach, because it would mean communities across this country would have to get qualified. So there's a money question here. Of course, they're not going to. So even if we do, the manager states, they're not going to want to, they're going to have to fight us. Even if we prove we've reached the threshold that requires soundproofing, we would have to sue them. And that's fine. That's how this works. When you have a big bad agency, whether it's big business or big bad federal agency, who doesn't want to spend money on a poor community like Chelsea, yes, you end up suing them, and that's where this is going to go. Eventually, it will have to, in order for us to get Massport to pay. I get that. If they're willing, I'm willing to go and advocate in that direction. I don't know if I have the support of my colleagues. I really don't know. If you're ready to go to a lawsuit, which will have, that's what we'll take. About the amount of what this sound study will go, even if we find somebody, I don't think it's, relatively, I don't think it's expensive. We haven't even put a number on that. So we don't know yet. We don't have a number on it. We don't know. But Councilor Recupero raised a very good point. And he said, maybe we use the $600,000 that we get annually in order to mitigate ourselves the problem and soundproof homes that Chelsea residents have that say that they have problems. And maybe we can do our own sound tests at homes and I'll do it. I agree with that. If we're getting $600,000 from Massport and Massport is saying, we're not going to soundproof you, use the money that we give you, I don't have a problem with that. That's Massport money. I know that the city manager is going to argue it differently. He's going to say, no, we need that for teachers and firefighters. But you know what? This is literally not blood money, but it's sound money. Okay? So if we're going to get money from the airport, and FAA is not going to, until we go to court and prove otherwise and get it for them to do it on FAA dime, then we might as well, I think, use the Massport money, some sort of money, set up a fund, and do our own sound study program. I absolutely think, because we cannot continue to wait for the, possibility of winning some lawsuit in the future. So if there's ever an order that Councilor Recupero wants to put forward, that funding for Massport goes into a program for soundproofing, and then we have the city manager create such a program with requirements for qualifications for that soundproofing program, I'm in full support. Thank you.
Councilor Bishop and then Councilor Brown. Sorry, Brown.
I'll be very brief. First of all, it's amazing that Massport with the Tobin Bridge and the airport is only giving us $600,000 a year. The casino in Everett, which has a much less of an impact, I think, on the city, is giving us $650,000. So I say, yeah, let's go and get Massport to increase their contribution and use the increase for the soundproofing. That's what we should do. That $600,000 that we're using for the budget, the manager, I'm sure, will be looking to leave that there. Let's get more money from them and use that cash to do the soundproofing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bishop. Councilor Brown.
Chairman.
Woman.
Woman chairman.
Okay.
Woman president.
Okay.
So I just want to say, first of all, thank the city manager for his delicacy and also his dedication for working to continue to address this issue. This is a fight. This is a fight not only that's being affected by the residents of Chelsea, but other surrounding communities. I stand to ask the city manager to continue that fight, to continue that drive, to rally with other communities. Last week, there was a story in the Boston Globe about other communities that's having the same problem. Medford, Malden, believe it or not, Salem, and I asked that the city manager form partnership with those communities that get more communities, city communities together to fight Massport together. It is a big giant. It is a community agency to look down on his commitment to Chelsea. As the order states, before 2015, we had a very good working relationship, and it was giving us some funding, and that funding has dwindled year after year, and now we literally have to beg to get the money. I want to thank my district councilor, for continuing to fight this battle, and I will be joining the city manager and joining this council in supporting whatever effort that we have to try to take on Massport, to try to litigate how we can best handle it, trying to partnership with other communities, keep our eyes on the papers to see the other communities is dealing with the same issue, and work with the city manager. And when we get a lot of communities together and we get a lot of folks of voices together, maybe we can make a dent in this and let Massport know that we're really serious about this. I got a lot of residents up on the hill, Lower Broadway, that we hear it. I know others hear it throughout the city, but we hear it up there loud, we hear it clear, and there's frustration. And again, I know we are trying, so continue to support the efforts to try to get something out of this deal for Massport. Thank you, Madam
Thank you, Councilor
Chair.
Brown. Okay, next order of business.
Home Rule petition for affordable housing. Dear councilors, I am writing to request that the city council approve a new home rule petition that will assist the city in meeting its affordable housing goals. We are all well aware that the city has a shortage of affordable housing. Further, it has been our shared goal to increase not only affordable housing, but affordable home ownership in the city. One way to meet these goals is to create affordable home ownership opportunities on parcels of land, whether vacant or with existing residential structures, that come into the possession of the city by means of tax title foreclosures. Unfortunately, right now, under current law, it is impossible for the city to ensure that parcels it acquires by tax title can utilize solely for affordable housing. By statute, any properties taken by the city must be sold at public auction, a process that leaves the city lacking any control over the price or the buyer. It is a rare for affordable housing developers or low-income buyers to prevail in such auctions. To remedy this problem, I am proposing to the City Council, with the full support of the Planning Department and Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board, a home rule petition that would grant the city the option to transfer ownership of appropriate tax title properties directly to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board. The AHTFB could then issue a request for a proposal to either sell directly to a low-income home buyer or to an affordable housing developer, depending upon the circumstances of the property. The proposed home rule petition is attached. That will be available along with the members of the Planning Department and the
Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board.
AHTFB to answer any questions from the council at an appropriate subcommittee meeting.
Got it. Can I have a motion?
Coming up on the new business.
Thank you, Councilor Robinson. Here's the agenda here. Roy, the
Unfinished business?
unfinished business? Yep.
Madam Chairwoman, President, rather, I asked that we remove from conference the order that was introduced on March 11th regarding the change in electric-assisted bikes.
It's before us. What do you wish to do with it, Councilor?
I'd like to pull it from conference and put it up for a roll call.
Did you want to speak on it?
Yes, please.
You have the floor.
Thank you. Madam President, earlier tonight, we had the conference on a order that was proposed back on March 11th, and this would be a change, an amendment to our ordinance, particularly Chapter 16, Section 1679, which would allow electrical assisted bikes in Chelsea. Right now, that type of bike is not allowed to be used. The background story behind this is that we are in an agreement, along with our other communities surrounding us, the Massachusetts Area Planning Council. We entered into an agreement with Lime Bike, which provides share bike program here in our community. Many of you may be familiar with them. They're the lime-colored bikes that we see in and around Chelsea, and it's been very popular. Early tonight, we learned up to 4,000 users on a monthly basis use this. And to continue the program, Lime Bike itself, the company, has changed its method or its business program, and now has changed its fleet of bikes to electric-assisted bikes. The idea behind this is to encourage greater use. By that, meaning individuals who may not only use the bike, but also may use a little bit of assistance for them and increase the demographics. In order for Chelsea to continue with the program, it needs to make an amendment to its ordinance so that we can participate. Basically, if we don't make this change, we won't be able to have the Lime Bikes in our city anymore. And I think that it's a very popular program that we should continue. If we want to encourage, people not to use cars and so forth, that we should have this. We've had some questions in committee about some of the problems that have occurred about this, but I think that over time, in the last 2 years, those issues are being resolved, and they will continue to do so. So I ask for support on this amendment so that we can continue to have the share bike program here in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Anybody else wish to speak? Councilor Bishop.
Thank you, Madam President. As I stated in conference, I have some concerns about this program. I'm not a fan of the line bike. I've gotten many complaints from people about them being left on their sidewalks and being very difficult for them to move out of their way. I've had this problem myself with them being left in front of my house and being there for a considerable amount of time. My concerns are that, number one, the city of Chelsea gets zero out of this program. I know we all want to feel like Cambridge and look like Cambridge, but we're not Cambridge. And I'm very concerned about the electric motor bicycles on the sidewalks. There are a lot of elderly walking around the neighborhoods and in the downtown area, and I don't know how we're going to keep the bikes off of the sidewalks. I know that they're not supposed to be there, but the bicycles that are pedaled now are on the sidewalks quite often and being ridden up and down the sidewalks. So an 80-year-old person walking down the sidewalk with a motor thing going along next to them, I don't think is a good combination. Our sidewalks in Chelsea are not as big as they may be in other communities, and I think it's a problem. And as I said, the city of Chelsea receives a big fat zero. I know when I pay my excise tax, it's $600 or $700 a year for the privilege to put my car on the road. And now I have to contend with bicycles that are going at least 15 miles an hour next to me. What happens if one of them hits my car? Am I going to get out and chase the bicycle? I don't think so. There's no license plates on them. You don't have any idea who they are. They can go around the corner and get off the bike, and you'll never know who it was. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. If there was some benefit to the city, I would say I'd be in favor of trying it. But if the line bikes were to leave the city today, I wouldn't feel bad. I mean, to me, I don't think they do a heck of a lot for the city. So for that reason, and the reason that even though it was stated in conferences that those small little bikes that go up and down the streets and make a ton of noise are still not allowed, or not, allowed under this thing. Who's going to enforce that? I think if you're okaying electric bikes for everyone to use, it's going to be very difficult to enforce keeping those off the street. So for those reasons, I'm voting against the
Thank you,
ordinance
Councilor
change.
Bishop. Anybody else wish to speak on the matter? Oh, Councilor Lopez.
I'm going to speak about Lime Bike. I think it's a good asset to have them in Chelsea. As we know, not too many people have cars, and parking is really tough in the city. And having bikes for them to ride, going to market basket, going to work, going to school, and to exercise, I think it's great to have the bikes in Chelsea. I will vote yes.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, so Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll be supporting the order tonight. Again, we've, over the last few months, have been discussing ways how to make our streets friendlier, safer. I know there's been, notwithstanding some small minor concerns with the bicycles that we have for the pilot program. We spoke about that in the hearing in the committee meeting this afternoon. And we've had our city planner, director, city manager, police department up front and give us testimony of what happened in the pilot program. I wasn't a big fan of all the bikes that was left on the sidewalks and left in front of businesses and so on. But we've had some commitment tonight in the meeting that these issues and these concerns will be addressed. And again, this is an additional one-year option. For 1 year, we can actually see what happens here going forward. From what I know, from what I read, these bicycles get up no more than 15 miles per hour. So it's not like we're going to have these electrical bikes like motorcycles and, scooters just flying through the sidewalks. I'm also a little hesitant and concerned with some of the work we're trying to do with restaurants by having restaurants open up on the sidewalks. So we've looked at that. We have folks here from our planning department. They've given us a commitment that they will work for the surety of safety for our public. And I think it's a great opportunity, as Councilor Lopez said. Not everyone has cars. We're trying to get cars off the roads here in Chelsea. And this is a great way not only to enhance our community, but also to give it a shot. If it doesn't work, it's a one-year commitment, and we can take the matter up again, or the next council, whoever the members are, will be able to address the future direction of this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. Councilor Recupero.
I believe this is a good program, and I'll be voting for it. We should try it. Why not? It gives an opportunity to people that have no way to get somewhere to get there. It's not a hard thing to do, and it doesn't go fast. Bicycles go faster than them. Some people pedal at 20 miles an hour. So why not try it? I'm in favor, and it's a good thing. We should do it.
Thank you. Councilor Pilatanda. I see you.
I mean, it can be a good thing, but I don't think these bicycles are gonna get cars off the street. I mean, I'll have to agree with my fellow Councilor Bishop, right? It's a safety issue right now. It's like right now you have bicycles on the sidewalk, on the street, where people are going every which way. It's not like Cambridge where they have bike lanes, and Boston has some bike lanes where they can follow the paths where the bikes can go, okay? Chelsea doesn't have that, and the people in Chelsea go each different direction up and down the sidewalk. They're going this way, that way. They don't follow the direction of the road of the cars. And then like Councilor Bishop said, another thing too is, if you're not watching where those bikes are coming from and they hit your car, who's gonna pay for it? I mean, I think it's a big safety issue. Until Chelsea, if we ever do, decide to put in bike lanes, then it'd be something to look at. I mean, look at, you get people getting hit by a bus just recently, crossing the street. Now you get people on bikes going every which way. What if somebody on a bicycle gets hit and sues the city? I think it's another issue we should be thinking about.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Tejada?
So I think that the study it wasn't even a study, it just, there were 4,000 people that rode the bikes last year.
A month.
Or a month. So I think that we have a pretty decent sample. Plus, you know what, kids have bikes. That's the reality, kids have bikes, and we all maneuver around them. The one thing for me that, and I'm gonna be voting yes for it, I mentioned in the subcommittee how I thought of it, summer night, came out of the movies with my kids, and there's a couple of green bikes and a couple of kids that I recognized from Chelsea. I thought that, that was pretty cool. Can you picture it? Kids hanging out, hey, let's get a bike, let's go to the movies. That was pretty cool. The one thing that I think changes the format of this is the fact that the company itself made the introduction in order to make the introduction. And when you're doing that as a company, you're not going to gouge people with money, right? You have to create the incentive so they get addicted to it, right? So they made it $1 so that people got the experience of it. Now, the motor with a bike, the price point is going to go up a little bit more. What that's going to do is it's going to make a bike not a toy, not an entertainment thing. It's going to become a transportation mode because it's going to be almost as expensive as riding the bus. And the other part that we need to realize is the fact that at the moment, I believe, and I may be mistaken, but I believe the number is 150 bikes that were here, the self-pedaling ones, but the motorbikes is going to be about half of that. It's going to be like 75, correct? Something like that. So the number is going to be lower, which means that the amount of traffic is going to be lower, but I think the price point is going to make it so that it's going to help us. Yeah, not everybody's going to ride, but I got clients that ride bicycle here and there because they work around Revere or whatever, you know what I mean? So I think that's going to turn it from a toy, from something that kids can use, to transportation mode.
Thank you, Councilor Tejada. Anybody else? All right, so roll call vote, can you clarify? Yes would
A
be?
yes would be to adopt, a no would be to deny.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Garcia?
Yes.
Councilor Vido?
Yes.
Councilor Avellaneda? Yes. Councilor Rodriguez? Yes. Councilor Lopez?
Yes.
Councilor Brown? Yes. Councilor Pilatanda?
No.
Councilor Tahada? Yes. Councilor Robinson? Yes. Councilor Bishop? No. Councilor Recupero? Yes. 9 in favor, 2 opposed, motion adopted.
New business.
New business.
Madam President, I move the orders, I object to the first reading of A through,
H.
H.
H, Bob.
A through 8?
Councilor Bishop is objecting to A through H, the financial orders.
Through I or H or I?
Objecting to the first reading.
You don't want to take up I either?
What's I? Wait a minute.
You objecting to it?
So because we object.
This is only an authorization.
Just to clarify, if we object to the first
Yeah, I
reading, does
object to
this mean
all.
that we
Through I.
cannot schedule subcommittees in the process until?
Well, he requested a subcommittee on the communication.
Okay, okay, got it. All right, got it.
Now, which ones do we want to object to?
Through I.
Through Y?
Through I,
Through I.
the last, which is 100,000.
No, they know I isn't.
Well, the casino went to conference too, didn't it? Well, I object to the first reading of it anyway.
Okay.
So you're objecting from A through I?
Yes.
Okay. All the money orders, A through I.
Yeah.
Objecting to the first reading. Some of them are part of a communication that was sent to a subcommittee on conference where there will be a discussion on it,
All except I.
all except I. So A through H will come up in a subcommittee that we will be scheduling to talk about the communication, except for I. Got it. So that'll bring us to J.
Well, what are you doing with I?
He objected to the first reading.
Just objected to the first, it's not going to conference?
What's that?
For I,
Didn't that communication go to conference also?
If you object A to I,
this is the one that talks about the
No, this is-
surrounding community agreement with WIN.
this is
Didn't that,
authorization, this is,
what happened to that communication? Was it just accepted or did it was sent to conference?
the casino one?
Yes.
I believe it was just accepted.
I think it was just accepted and filed.
Accept and file, Bob, again, I'm pretty sure. Let me find it for you.
I think it was just a financial one that went to subcommittee.
That's A was A. Quarterly high on A. Free cash is B. C is surrounding.
No? Wait, I saw one.
Look at that. They might be stuck together, why not?
Resolution.
Where the casino one went.
Where did it go?
Went to conference.
I don't see it here. All right, we're gonna just take a
right,
quick,
then why don't we take-
minute, just so we can organize ourselves. I lost a whole communication. Okay. All right, so, yes, ma'am.
Okay?
All right, all right.
So we have an objection to
A
A
through
to H,
H.
and I will go to the subcommittee on
And
conference.
Councilor Bishop, moves it to a subcommittee on conference.
Okay?
Okay, on conference or finance?
Conference.
Subcommittee on conference or finance?
No, Subcommittee on Conference.
On conference, got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next order is introduced by Councilor Robinson and Vido. Whereas the City of Chelsea's Comprehensive Housing Analyst and Strategic Plan of November 15, 2017 found that the City of Chelsea faces a need for more affordable housing. Whereas the City Council has undertaken efforts to increase the availability of affordable housing within the city, including adopting an inclusionary zoning amendment. Whereas additional efforts are still necessary to improve affordable housing opportunities, particularly opportunities for affordable home ownership. And whereas the City of Chelsea has established an Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board pursuant to the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44 and 55C. Now therefore be it ordered by the City Council of the City of Chelsea as follows, that a petition to the General Court accompanied by a bill for a special law relating to the City of Chelsea be filed with an attested copy of this order, be and hereby is approved under Clause 1 of Section 8 of Article 2 as amended of the amendments to the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to the end that legislation be adopted precisely as follows, except for clerical and editorial changes of form only. Home Rule petition. Notwithstanding any general or specific law to the contrary, and provided that 1 year has passed following the entry of an order of foreclosure of tax title, the City of Chelsea shall have the authority to dispose of property taken for non-payment of property taxes under Chapter 60 of the General Laws by transferring such property at no cost to its Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board, and such board shall be required to dispose of all such property solely for the purpose of expanding stock of affordable housing within the City of Chelsea by using the procedures specified in Chapter 30B, Section 16. Section 2, the act shall take effect as of the date of its passage.
Councilor Robinson?
I'd like to actually send it to a conference so that everybody can be clear on what the attempt is here. And I think my attempt is to add another tool to the toolbox so that we can start looking at some of the home ownership as opposed to just going after affordable housing. So my take is looking at more home ownership in regards to this resolution.
So you're moving it to a subcommittee on conference?
Yes.
Thank you. So moved.
Next order introduced by Councilor Vido, order that a subcommittee on conference be held with the Chelsea Bike and Pedestrian Committee to provide an update on their work.
Can I have a motion from someone? Seeing no objection, so moved. Thank you, Councilor.
Next order introduced by Councilor Robinson, order that a subcommittee on conference be held to discuss the municipal electric aggregation.
Councilor Robinson.
Seeing if there are no objections.
Seeing no objection, so moved.
Next order introduced by Councilor Robinson, order that a subcommittee on conference be held to discuss the integration of water and sewer service within the Chelsea DPW.
Councilor Robinson.
Adopt this unanimously under suspension. If I can just be brief.
Seeing no objections, you have the floor, Councilor.
I'd be requesting a written report explaining why we should make this change. I do have concerns which I will raise at the conference. What stands out to me is why did the receivership outsource this and we are bringing it back in-house? And what is the buyout from this contract? And I want to know what the real cost is going to be to the city.
Okay.
Next order introduced by Councilor Recupero, Councilor Lopez, Councilor Vido, and Councilor Tejada. Order that all street cleaning should be limited to the same amount of time on every street. There should be no exceptions.
Any objections? Councilor Rodriguez objects to the first reading.
That's all we have.
Okay. Public announcements, and let's save moments of silence to the end. Any public announcements? No? Okay, so let's do moments of silence. Yeah. If you want.
Go, mug? Waiting for you.
Go ahead.
Good. Moment of silence for Carmen Nieves, who passed away on April 15th.
Yeah, she was a huge community staple in the community, worked at the Boys and Girls Club for over 20 years, and a lot of parents just found a lot of solace in knowing that she was there to look over our kids. I also want to have a moment of silence for Mary Petiglio, which is the East Boston native that was hit by the MBTA bus here in our streets.
Also want to have a moment of silence for Laura Covino, a retired Chelsea cafeteria teacher who spent a lot of years here in the city of Chelsea, and also Mrs. Siegel that passed away last week. And again, a special condolence to the Flores family, Nevis Carmen, as we stated earlier, who was a pillow at the Boys and Girls Club. My daughter and my son, both of them came up under her tutelages. And it's just a big loss, and again, extended condolence to that family.
And just to name Councilor Lopez's granddaughter, her name was Evie Lopez.
Yes.
Seeing no further business before us, we're adjourned.